So, little Benji, when he first came out in Crucible of War, players were excited at the different deck crafting lines that he offered. Cards like Blue Scar and Blue Life emerged from under pint glasses everywhere. Yes, that's a coaster joke. And I think it's fair to say that he saw some moderate success. With Everfest, though, he gained some incredible tools for some pretty brutal OTK builds. I can draw how many cards with Spring Tidings? I can even fish it out with the new mask? Sounds pretty baller. The crazy clown demon monkeys in players' heads started going wild on how to kill somebody on turn 0. Benji players swapped stories over beers. Oh, you only did how much damage? Well, let me tell you, mine was even bigger than that. After a bit of time, however, adept players with heroes like Warrior and Guardian specifically, with tons of armor equipment, proved they could play around Benji's OTK pretty reliably and take the tempo back. But now with Uprising and a focus on a new talent ninja, Benji still benefited. A ninja double strike, if you will. And perhaps, though, not necessarily in the way that Benji players necessarily would have thought. You could even say they might have to ride the tailwind of some non-traditional choices all the way to victory. So that's right, today I'm putting on my tiger stripes, and we're talking Benji's new toys. Salt the Wound, Head Jab, Razor Reflex combo. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando, and thank you very much for tuning into yet another Go Again, a fabulous cast. So, to our Benji purists, let's pump the brakes on the dislike button for this one, okay? Because today I'm, to quote a favorite comedian of mine, Patton Oswalt, I'm going to take you into Mordor, and then we're going right back into the Shire. That's right, we're going to talk about some non-traditional moves with Benji. Things that might make you disagree, which is completely fair. I'm going to be talking about including cards that don't have combo, intentionally running cards that can be blocked, using attacks reacts on things other than Spring Tidings. I know, I'm a moron. We've already established that over the 200 plus episodes we've done. That's fine, right? But tonight, let's chat Benji and some of his new tools from Uprising. So before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Travis over at Fab Foundry. I know everybody's looking for singles right now, and he's got them in spades over on his site. So if you do go over there to get some singles, please use the link below. I see a small kickback from that, most of which gets turned into money that goes back to see Travis, Travis goes back and sees it. I pick up my singles from it. Really good guy over there. He runs events. He's someone who actually really legitimately cares about Flesh and Blood, growing the game. Great place to put your money. So thanks to Travis over at Fab Foundry. And again, if you're going to go over there and get some singles, please just use that link below. Costs you nothing. I see stuff from it. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. All right, so tonight, that's right, we are talking Benji, and specifically the new tools that he picked up from Uprising. Now, I already did a video on Take the Tempo, right? This card right here, which is a great, I believe it's a very fantastic card that a lot of people are sleeping on because it's not necessarily the sexiest of the ninja cards from this set. But this card's really, really, really good from Benji. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this one because I did do a whole video on it. But the gist is this. If they don't block this, you get an extra card for your next turn, which helps you build that bigger swing, right? It helps you get more combos out, help make your Spring Tiding a bigger threat. And if they do block it, you actually fix one of the Benji problems, which is they get to clap back with a full hand, right? So this card is a win-win scenario. Most of the time it's coming in just one for, Kadachi, maybe 1, 2, kind of just, a couple little rib jabs in there, and then you take the tempo, and they're probably going to block it. If they do throw equipment at it, then they've probably already lost the game, but you know what? You get it, right? This card's very, 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 very strong. So please go check out that video if you haven't already. I kind of talk about that in general. So one of the other cards he picked up is Tiger Stripe Shuko. This card is awesome. I have this, for some reason, somehow I got 3 legendaries of this out of basically the case-ish I opened. I got 1 on pre-release pre-can and then 2 out of my 2 case breaks, but aside from that, that's not the reason I think this is awesome. This is really good for Benji. Now, this is again one of those like non-traditional decisions, and I'm sure a lot of dislikes have already been thrown for this one from Benji players. But right, remember, Benji is only unblockable if you're at that 2 or below limit, right? Not based on base, which a lot of cards out there on. Its actual limit. And remember, Benji himself rides the +1, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Again, we've talked about the Benji problem being that a lot of times they don't block, and I'm personally fine because here's the deal, right? If people are playing, defense reactions are one of the things that can really potentially hurt Benji, and here's why: because you're trying to use your attack reacts, your razors, your ancestrals, you're trying to use those to get over on your spring tidings, right? Or the ones that you want to hit. So it's not a horror. And again, if somebody has, like, let's say they have the 3 cards they need for a line and they have a D-React in their hand or in their arsenal, a lot of times they'll use that, right? Or you can at least try and bait them out into using it. So it's not a horrible thing to have these strikes that come in for 2, right? That's just kind of my thought on this. Is basically it's a plus, this plus Benji is a +2 on your second attack, which means you're coming in for 2, or excuse me, +2, which could be a 3 or a 4, and maybe even you go something crazy. And now remember, this will only apply on a 2 or less, right? So it's, you know, you can't do, you could throw your take the tempo out there and then try to split up the Benji thing and then somehow give it go again. You'd have to be using snappies, or you could ride the tailwind, all sorts of, I mean, again, we could go on for hours about all the sorts of combos available to Benji, which is why I think so many people love him. But I don't think it's a horrible thing to have your second one be blocked here. I don't think it's a horrible thing. Also remember that you can play Benji such that you can be smart on, you know, like double strike is a great example there. Like you can be smart about how you time it to line up your stuff. And again, sometimes based on your hands, maybe you're not going to be, but I don't think it's a horrible thing to have that block there. So I really do like Tiger Stripe Shuko. I know some people will want to stick with the gloves, right? The traditional gloves. They have the battle worn. They can pop a combo card and get it over, which helps you on your spring tidings. Completely legitimate based on who you're playing. You know, if you're playing somebody with a lot of armor, probably that's the right choice. But I don't hate the threat that Shuko offers. All right, next is Vipox. So I think this is, not I think, I really like this card in Benji. And I also think, and here I can hear more dislike buttons getting clicked, I think this is worth putting an attack react into. So I like Vipox just as you just drop it. Or you ride the tailwind into, ride the tailwind, do that into that. It might even, with how much we're trying, it might even be worth trying to run all. But anyway, so you ride the tailwind to this, or you razor this, right? And you're like, but if I razor it, then they can D-react it. Fair enough. You sucked out a D-react. But the real thing here is, I think a lot of times this one, you throw this one out as like your second attack, right? It's going to be coming in for 2. And by that, you know, like I said, ride into this or something like that. You're going to be tossing it out as your second. 2, do they throw armor in front of this? I think so, because if this hits, let's say it's coming for 2, it hits, they still have a full hand because they haven't blocked yet. That's a lot. Like, that's a lot. So I think if they do that, I think it's worth razoring. And that offers you go again, which maybe it had anyway. Maybe you had a plan for it. Fair enough. But it gives you options, and again, that starts sucking out cards. So is it an ideal play? No. But think about it this way, right? If they do block it with equipment and you come over the top with a razor, this thing's hitting for probably 3 plus the 4 in their hand. That's a lot in Blitz. So I'm just throwing it out there. Now, I also think, and we'll kind of talk about the other one later, but I do think the new attack reaction that we saw, which is not as good as Razor, I don't believe, right? But Rapid Reflex, I think if you're running Vipox, I think there's an argument to be running Rapid Reflex as well. And I know I'm taking my wind out of my sails for one of my last ones, but they go hand in hand. All right, Double Strike. Do I really need to talk about this card? This card's just phenomenal, right? I mean, again, you have to be a little smart with how you time it for your pluses and stuff like that, because you could potentially, so I mean, you open with this, you go 1-3, right? With the Tiger Stripe and with Benji, right? You go 1-3. Pretty darn good. I also want to point out that you do not have to play them immediately after each other, right? You can hit for one, do something else, it stays banished, and then come again. You absolutely can do that. Do be careful though, however, if you're playing somebody with Frostbite. I actually did that. I double striked and then they Frostbite me and I actually couldn't play my double strike and I actually stayed in my banish. I mean, not a huge loss there. Best, I guess it doesn't really matter whether it's going there or somewhere else, but I couldn't play my second double strike. So that happens. That happens. I mean, again, it's kind of funny. We're not going to spend as much time on this card because I don't think there's as much to say because I don't think this card's very debatable. But this is definitely a very, very strong tool that he and I think probably all ninjas got. Now, do know it doesn't have combo, but it doesn't matter because it has go again. This card in your hand is worth 2 at a minimum, right? Most of the time, I think it's probably worth 3. Well, not technically because something else would have gotten that +1, but the fact that it's a 1 and it can keep you under that limit on a +1, pretty hot. All right, so Rapid Reflex, I kind of talked about this one already. So this is the last of the generic, I mean, again, we ran through all the generic ninja cards here, right? And that's, I think, kind of a point is I think all of the generic ninja cards helped him. I think this one's probably the weakest of the group because it does block for 3, which is fine, but I think it's worse than Razor. But pretty good. I mean, it's more options. Most of the stuff he's going to be running is cost 0. Most of what you're running in the deck is cost 0, right? You're running your blues to do Kodachi, and then most of the Benjis I've seen actually end up only like swinging Kodachi. Well, like one Kodachi, and then the other Kodachi might come in later, right? Depending on how things turn out with whatever you have available. But either way, you guys get it, right? So if most of the Benji decks in the past, they had run Ancestral and Razor, and they'd usually arsenaled one of those, typically a Razor, to try and get over on the Spring Tidings equipment block, and then hope that they don't have the D-React. And right, and you guys, again, the Benji players who've done it before, the chess match of going on. It's like I'm holding back, I've got a D-React in arsenal, trying to hold back one in hand, right? There's the chess match going on between the two players on can I get over and hit, because if I hit, you're toast. And if I block it, you're toast, right? So there's like the 2 to 3 turn setup trying to get that all to happen, assuming they just don't draw the nuts, right? So that's really the question, and this is maybe the debatable card, is depending on how you're building your deck, do you want an additional react or not? I think in most cases, in most of the builds, if you are taking a build that we saw during Everfest, like a traditional Everfest, not that we have a tradition on Everfest because it wasn't that long ago, right? But if you had like more of a traditional Everfest build, I think you probably don't play this. I think probably not. That said, if you're trying to do some more other cute stuff, and like on my Vipoc suggestion, if you would be okay trying to like smack them for a quick 7 or something like that early on a Vipox, I think going ahead and running Rapid Reflex probably is the right answer there. So this one's very debatable, but again, the fact that it's a threat available to him, and sure, once they see your deck list, they know, but the fact that it's a threat potentially available to him that they do have to concern themselves with, I think is actually valuable just in of itself of existing. All right, so what I wanted to do now, let's go ahead and just run through the Benji deck that I have currently. So we are over at one of our other sponsors, FabDB. Again, you guys all have been at FabDB before. You guys know how to use this. It's fantastic. It is not only it's the best resource we have on the web. No secret about it. When you are over there, do considering going and upgrading your account. You can go up here to your account section. You can upgrade your account to unlock all the additional features. Pretty great. I will share the link of this as well, which can take you to their site. So we've got the Kodachis. I do have the boots, of course, but we've got breaking scales, and I have the Shuko because I think it depends on what your matchup is, right? I think if you have more armor, you want to run the scales. I do have both masks depending on where you land. I think there are definitely arguments to be made for running momentum, right? I know that Lynx lets you go tutor, and it's fantastic. But I think in many cases, just getting the extra damage in when you can get it right off that card draw, I think is very strong, or to let you arsenal maybe your attack reaction or whatever. So anyway, Breeze Rider Boots. I do like Vest the First Fist in here. I just think it's really strong because it helps you pull what you might need for your attack reactions, right? We have the gloves and the robe, and then we have the flippers, and then the Shuko, of course. Right, for the main deck, we have Ancestral, no secret there, Double Strike, even bigger than that, Razor Reflex, Take the Tempo, right? That's something a lot of people may not be running, but again, I'm very positive that's a very good include here. I do have Vipox, I have Break Tide, I have Yellow-Blue Crane, Yellow-Blue Head. I know a lot of people don't run Blue Head. I think it's good. I know it doesn't have combo, but it doesn't matter, right? 100 Winds, Yellow-Blue. Right, the Tailwind's Yellow-Blue, Salt the Wound. Again, this one does not have combo. I get it, but this card is phenomenal. It also has a base 2, so it goes with your flippers. Spring Tidings. Oh, shocker, I included that one. I do have Fine Center in there. Again, this one has combo, so it goes with your boots. We have the Soul Bead Strike. That's the blue Soul Bead's the only one I have, but it's a guaranteed go. Well, not guaranteed, but I mean, they could shut you down on that. But if they want to throw armor in front of that and clear for Spring Tidings, cheers, right? And then we have Winds of Eternity as well. Remember that if you're doing your 100 Winds line, you start getting the bonuses and stuff, and things start getting weird. And then Winds of Eternity, if it does follow 100 Winds, actually gets the +2. But again, it's another threat out there, and it's not the end of the world to get cards out of their hand. When you're ending your chain, it's not the end of the world to get cards out of their hand so that you can live another day. So that's the deck that I have it as right now. Again, I know that I do believe there are many different ways to play that. I mean, as long as for the most part you have a lot of combo cards in here for your boots turn, things are okay, right? But I do think that there's arguments to be made for including potentially Rapid Reflex in here as well. I may be a little too blue heavy on this, to be honest with you. I'd like to hear some feedback on that one. But this is where I'm running now. But yeah, so again, let's get the conversation started instead of, hating on each other and saying people are stupid. Let's get the conversation going, and let's improve everybody's decks. I know I've got some interesting ideas in here that you may disagree with, but I think they're worth discussing. I think Take the Tempo is really, really, really strong. I do think Vipox is worth playing. And yeah, so anyway, let's go from there. Thank you everyone for tuning in for the Benji chat. I think he's really fun to look at. He just keeps picking up tools, right? And the tools he picked up before were OTK build-ish, and I think the tools he picked up this time are a little more sustainable. I mean, I don't think there's a sustainable Benji. That's not the right word, but a little more longer Benji. So Benji's getting older. He's getting taller. So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you're thinking. Nothing else. Go Commando.